Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I'm going to do a short introduction and get out of the way because this one's going to be a little bit longer. But we're going back to the Jason Meade trial where he's on trial for murder of Casey Goodson. If you don't remember all of the details of the case, Jason Meade was a sheriff's deputy with Franklin County working on a U.S. Marshals task force. And on this particular day, he had an encounter with Casey Goodson where he chose to discharge his firearm. Casey Goodson did not survive the encounter. The video that we're going to watch today is actually going to be Jason Meade's testimony. He chose to take the stand and testify in his own defense. So the testimony that you're going to see today, or the video that you're going to see today, is going to be him testifying and being interviewed by the defense. If you would like, let me know in the comments. I can make a video in the future of him testifying or being cross-examined by the prosecutor. If you want to see that, I will go ahead and post that at some point in the future. I might do it anyway. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. But for today's video, this is just going to be him on direct examination from the defense attorney. Now, for this case, you're going to hear Jason Meade's version of the story, and I'm going to let him speak for himself in this video. But I would like to summarize the prosecution's case just so you can think about it, and you can think about which version of story of the events is most likely to be true. And that's what I want you to be considering while you're listening to Jason Meade's testimony. So the defense, or the prosecution, the story that the prosecution is telling, the story that they want you to believe because they want to put Jason Meade in prison for murder. They're saying that he acted outside of his authority as a commissioned police officer in the killing of Casey Goodson. They want you to believe that he was leaving a warrant search, just driving down the road on his way to lunch, sees a random black guy in a car, not doing anything wrong, turns his F-150 around at an intersection and gives pursuit to this random black guy that was absolutely doing nothing. They want you also to believe that Casey Goodson parked his car the same way that he always parks his car, was peacefully walking to his house, carrying nothing more than keys and a bag of Subway sandwiches, walked up to the back door, and that Jason Meade ran up behind him for no reason other than wanting to kill a black person and shot him 6 times in the back. That's what the prosecution wants you to believe. The prosecution wants you to believe that it's a complete coincidence that Casey Goodson had a firearm under him when he was found. They want you to believe that it's absolutely impossible for Jason Meade to have known that Casey Goodson had a firearm on him. That is the version of story that you must believe if you're going to convict Jason Meade of murdering Casey Goodson. I'm not going to get too deep into what Jason's story is. You can hear that for yourself, but just think about it while he's telling the story. Think about if he is lying. Do you find him credible? Do you think he's lying? Do you think that the prosecution is right, that Casey Goodson never had his firearm out in his hand, had it in a holster tucked inside of his pants the entire time, and it's just an absolute coincidence that the gun was outside of his holster underneath his body when they rolled him over after being shot and killed by Jason Meade? That's it for my part of this video today. Go ahead and watch the testimony. I hope you learned something about it. I found it very informative, and I learned a great deal from this. So go ahead and enjoy this for yourself. Probably not the right choice of words. I'm going to get out of the way. I'll talk to you guys later.
Over your walkie-talkie.
Yeah, at this time, whenever I made the turn, really quickly, as soon as I turned onto Estates Place, I could see the suspect's vehicle up ahead of me on the left side of the road.
Okay, so you turn on
Estates Place.
Ferris.
Now, I was on Ferris, and I turned south on Estates Place and immediately saw it and started airing that I've got him stopped, or I have the vehicle stopped up here.
Were you asked, did you give your location?
So it was actually, I said, hey, I called it the target street. So anytime we work with the marshals, we refer to the target as who we're looking for, and then the address, target address. So to try to simplify, I was making reference to he's going back to our target street to make sure that everyone who's responding would know it's back on the street where we just were.
What do you then observe, Jason?
I notice he's parked on the left side of the road facing the wrong way.
What do you do?
So I'm airing on the radio the location. I pull up short just north of his position by a few houses because I have no protection on whatsoever. I already know that the suspect is armed and I have no weapon and I have no body armor at all. So if I'm to approach him, I want to give myself much protection.
You see the car?
Yes.
Can you see into the car from where you're at?
No.
Okay. So you pull over and tell the ladies and gentlemen, jury, what you do when you, and you explained why, tell them what you do when you pull over.
Pulled over to the right side of the road. I get out and I left my driver's side door open, went to the back at the truck vault that I explained earlier, the storage. I dropped the tailgate, opened up the storage, and I retrieved my bulletproof vest with the rifle plates in it. And I started putting it on.
Okay. Are you doing it like, hey, then I did this, then I did that?
No, I'm doing it. The explanation takes longer than it took me to actually do it. I threw it on as fast as I possibly could and start buckling up. There's a series of buckles and Velcro on these tactical vests.
What's the urgency, Jason? Why? What's the urgency here?
Because the suspect's still in the vehicle. Our best opportunity is try to contain him as best we can inside the vehicle. At the time, I'm getting my bulletproof vest on so that I have protection.
Was your goal to investigate at that time?
Yeah, to get up to him to investigate why he's doing what he's doing.
Based on your law enforcement experience, is it a criminal offense to be waving a gun and pointing it at somebody?
Yes.
Did you know any other thing about the person at that point in time?
No, nothing at all.
So you're there getting your stuff. When does Rosser get there?
As I'm getting the vest on, Rosser pulls up next to me in his truck and the windows are down. And I'm saying to him, hey, there's the vehicle right there. I'm pointing down the road and showing him which vehicle I'm talking about.
What happens next?
He starts asking me, I believe Rosser's the one who was asking.
Don't go into what he said.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
I interrupted you.
Hold on, Mr. Schroyer had done an objection.
Yeah, Your Honor, he didn't want us to go into what Rosser said, so that's why I interrupted him.
Overruled, Lord, disdain.
You told Rosser what you saw.
Yeah, I told him what I saw as far as the location of the vehicle. And in the course of our discourse, I noticed he, meaning the driver of the car, had exited the car.
Okay. When he exited the car, what did you see?
When he got out of the car, I saw him get out of the car. He had a plastic bag in one hand, and I believe it was in his left hand, and then in his right hand, he still had the gun.
Did he see you?
Yes.
Were you facing him?
Yeah, so I'm facing him in between my truck and Rosser's truck, and I had already got my vest on, and I actually point and I say, hey, there he is. And through the discourse, I said, the guy with the gun, and he has the gun in his hand right now, to which,
You could see a gun in his right hand.
yes, I could see the gun in his right hand
What
clearly.
did you see in the left hand?
Plastic bag.
Did you see him lock a car or anything like that?
No.
Okay. What happens next, Jason?
In response to me pointing and yelling, there he is, he saw me, and he turned and he took off the other direction, running
You
from
say
us.
took off.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean to you at that point in time? What goes through your mind based on your training and experience, Jason?
That the suspect is trying to flee and elude police officers.
Okay. So you see a car parked the wrong way. The same car that the person with the gun in.
Yes.
You see the person out of the car now with a gun in the right hand and a bag in the left.
Yes.
And what do you have on? Do you have your credentials on or your identification?
So I have on, like I said, the patches are in letters that says U.S. Marshals, and it's also reflective white letters. It's a black tactical vest, so the white letters stand out pretty prominently. Then on the back, I have markings from U.S. Marshals as well.
Why is it urgent now that the person's eluding you? What does that mean based on your training, Jason?
The situation escalates when you have an armed threat already armed with a weapon, a firearm especially, and then he sees us and takes off. It's escalated and it becomes even more urgent to.
What did you do right at that point, Jason?
I jumped in the truck and I took off to try to catch up to him.
As fast as possible?
Fast as I could get there, yes.
Did you wait and see if Rosser and the others were following you?
No, I thought they were right with me.
Okay. So you go Fair to say as fast as you can?
fast as I could get up there.
What do you do, Jason?
I'd lost sight of him, so by the time I jump in the truck, because I'd grabbed my rifle, which was in the back seat. I grabbed my rifle and pulled the sling over my head, and I jumped into the driver's seat of the truck, closed the door, and I took off. By that time, I'd already lost sight of him, and all I saw was him. I'd lost sight of him because I saw him duck in behind a house.
Behind the house.
A house, yeah.
Did you see him go into the front part of the house?
No, so when he took off from this house, he bypassed all front doors and then cut in behind a fence.
So you get up to the area where the exhibit was with your car. What do you see, Jason?
So once I pulled up to where you saw in the picture where my truck stopped, I stopped because I could actually see the suspect opening the storm door and getting in, looking like going into a side door of a house.
Why is that an urgent? Why is that a threat, Jason?
He's an armed suspect. I don't know where he's come from. I don't know whose home this is. I don't know what he's going to do. All I know is he just pointed a gun at me, and now he's running from me.
Do you have the opportunity to find out what the address is and call it in?
I didn't know what the address was.
Do you have the opportunity to run the license plate and see?
No.
What type of harm can someone running through a neighborhood cause, Jason, based
So-
on your training and experience?
So the urgency of it, again, being that I'm on a tactical team, we do barricade hostage situations, things like that. If he gets into a home and takes hostages, he could go into a home, barricade himself. He could set up to ambush police officers. I've experienced about all of this.
Anything that's happened so far about the actions you've observed, it says that, strike that, it's a terrible question. Sorry, Joe. So the actions you've observed so far with this individual, starting at the intersection, are what?
It's a high threat.
Pumping out the gun?
Yes, starting with the pumping of the gun, driving with the gun in his hand, waving the gun around, pointing the gun at me, and then getting out of the vehicle with a gun in his hand, turning, running from me.
Does that mean based on your training experience that you're supposed to pursue?
Yes,
Are you supposed to try to preserve the sanctity of life?
yes.
You get there, what do you see, what do you do, Jason?
I get out of the truck, I train my rifle on him as I'm trying to approach him as fast as I can while still maintaining the rifle on him, and I begin yelling, U.S. Marshals, police, get on the ground, show me your hands, get on the ground, drop the gun.
Was there any response?
No, there's no response from him.
When you were at your vehicle, when you first saw the person, how far away do you think you were?
I'm not sure, maybe 30 feet or so, 35 feet away.
Did you then go towards the person?
Yeah, I closed the distance and actually ended up stopping because the door then opened up,
Okay,
the interior door.
okay. So, are you going forward as you're yelling?
Yes, I'm going toward him. I'm closing the distance as I'm going toward him, and I'm yelling commands to drop the gun, show me his hands.
What are you trying to achieve right then when you're giving the commands?
I'm trying to get him to surrender.
Comply?
I just want him to, yes, I want him to surrender, and I want this to be over. I want it to end.
Stop.
No, he did not.
You're yelling multiple times?
Yes,
Okay. Identifying yourself
yes,
based on your training?
yes,
Okay. Drop the weapon?
yes.
Okay. Could you see the weapon at this point?
Now, at this time, it was at a point where he had his back to me, and the storm door was actually resting against him. He was trying to get the door open, and then as the door opened up, he had stepped up into the doorway and stopped.
What do you mean stop?
He had stepped up into the doorway and he stopped, and he kind of like, it almost, I don't know any other way of describing it than almost like an exhale, like he sighed. And he kind of shrugged, like dropped his shoulders.
Sorry, I'm sorry. So
The words ran together and I missed part of that.
you're giving commands.
Yes,
When you were giving commands to stop and drop the weapon, okay?
Yes.
You couldn't see the weapon.
no, I couldn't see his hands because he had his back to me.
Okay. At that point in time, you're describing for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and Mr. Merkel that you saw his shoulders go down.
Yes.
Okay. What did that mean to you at that point in time?
When the door opened and he stepped up and stopped and dropped his shoulders, I thought he was going to surrender. I thought he was going to be over.
If he stopped right there, what was your next step?
So, immediately I stopped. I stopped closing the distance. I stopped and I began giving him more commands.
Where did you stop at?
I stopped just outside the fence. There was an opening in the fence, and I stopped just outside the opening of the fence.
Based on your training, are you trying to back him out?
So I would have my intent was to call him back towards me.
Did Give him commands to show his hands.
Yes,
Did you see his hands at this point?
I could not see his hands.
What happens next, Jason?
After he had stopped, I give him more commands again, at which point he made a turn and pointed a gun back toward me.
And what did you do?
I stepped to the left and I shot him
Why?
because he pointed his gun at me. I thought I was going to die.
You're positive you saw that gun,
100% positive.
and you saw the gun come back towards you.
Yes.
Stand up, please, Jason, with the court's permission.
Wait.
If you'll turn and face the other way. So if you were that individual's facing you. You can't see the gun at this point, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury how the shoulders shrug.
He dropped like this.
Okay. You believe that that was going to be, that he was going to comply?
That's when I thought he was going to comply.
What approach? Overruled.
Okay. What went through your mind when the shoulders went down?
I thought he was going to surrender.
Had he dropped the gun there, what would you have done?
I would have given him orders to call him back towards me. I've done it plenty of times.
Is he still a threat, even if he drops the gun?
Oh, yeah, he's still a threat.
A potential threat?
Yes, he's a potential threat. He's not a deadly threat, but he's still a potential threat.
What happens next, Jason? Show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how he turns back towards you.
He had his back to me, and then he made a turn like this, bringing the gun up and pointing it back to me.
What went through your mind? Have a seat. What went through your mind when you saw that gun?
I thought he was going to shoot me. I'm thinking I don't want to die. For no very reason. I never thought I was going to have to shoot him. I thought he was going to give up. And he didn't.
You said you moved to the left. Why did you move to the left before you fired?
In all my training, anytime that we train, we constantly train to get offline, meaning wherever position you're in, whenever a threat presents itself, step to the left, step to the right, step somewhere, get offline as you engage. It helps you with protection. It gives you a better opportunity. Hopefully that if they're tracking your position, it gives you a tactical advantage.
Do you know how many times you pulled the trigger?
I pulled the trigger one time.
Why one time?
When I closed the distance with him, I had to actually, when he pointed the gun at me, I flipped the select fire switch to full auto.
Why did you flip it to full auto, Jason?
Because of the close proximity that I was with him, or I was with,
Based on
within
your
him.
training?
Yeah, so that's one of, yes, it is. It's based off of my training.
How fast, I mean, the ladies and gentlemen of the jury saw a demonstration with the click and the click of that. How fast do you do it, Jason?
Instantaneously. It's momentous.
And are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm left-handed.
And where were you, do you believe, when, in the general area, where were you, do you believe, when you fired your weapon?
Outside the gate. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Where I was geographically? Yes, I was just outside the gate.
Where was the individual?
He was inside the doorway
And why did you stop pressing the trigger?
because he dropped.
Okay. Which way did he drop?
It looked like he dropped straight down.
What were you trying to do when that gun came at you and you fired, Jason?
It stopped the deadly threat.
Did you have any other choice at that point?
I did not.
What happens next, Jason?
I hear the guys behind me saying, "You all right? You all right?" And I look back and it's Rosser and Yorkowitz coming up closer to me.
What happens next?
I told them that the suspect's on the other side of the doorway. I said he's on the other side of the doorway because you could see there was a glass storm door and the glass had fallen. You could actually see him laying just on the other side of the door.
What tactically or what based on your training are you guys doing at this point, Jason?
We have to go up and we still have to get up to him.
Do you know any?
His voice dropped, I didn't
Oh, that's okay.
I have to get up to him, sir.
Okay. Do you know anything that's going on in the house?
No.
Based on your training, what do you have to assume is going on in the house?
You can't really make assumptions of what's going on. All we could do is, as I told them to come up with me, he's on the other side of the door. We start making announcements into the house, that if there's anybody in the house, get your hands where we can see them. This is the police coming in.
Do you know if there's other people in the house?
No, we still have to, I mean, if there's any presumption at all that there's already a deadly threat that's been presented, we have to present this, or we still have to expect there to be a threat.
Are you trained to try to expect the unexpected?
Of course.
Is there a million different things that could be going on in that house that could be criminal in nature?
Sure. That's why we approach it with more caution at this point, and we make our announcements loud and clear as we approach the doorway.
When you say "we," who is "we," Jason?
It was myself, Rosser, and Yorkowitz.
And what happens next?
We get to the door and open the door, and I asked Rosser to cover the left. The door,
What do you mean by cover the left, Jason?
meaning to make sure that the left side is covered with, I don't know, to make sure it's covered so that we don't have anybody step out on us on the left. So, because he was laying in the doorway, and there's a door right in front of the door.
Then, who goes into the kitchen?
Well, before we could even get to it, because he's laying in the doorway, I say cover the left, and he can't really cover the left because of the door. I think he ended up having to force the door completely open. It was stuck on something. Rosser had to force so he could cover left, but as he tried to do that, he wasn't very successful. I said, and of course, the suspect's laying on the ground, and I'm yelling commands, show me your hands, of which he's not replying at all.
Why are you yelling commands to someone that's on the ground?
I don't know how I hit him. If I hit him, I have no idea. If he's injured, I don't know.
Describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury the positioning of the body when on the ground.
He was laying face down, and his arms were still underneath him.
Like this, you mean, for the record, so you're putting.
I could not see his hands.
At this point in time, what do you do, Jason?
I asked him to cover me, and I stepped over his body, and I reached across, and I grabbed his right arm, and as I pulled his right arm, he had the gun laying right there underneath his right arm.
So explain that to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury again. So you step over, you're giving commands, correct?
Yes, I stepped over him, and then I reached back this way, and the reason I stepped over him was because it's so tight and it's so narrow in that area. For us to cover any possible threats that's still inside this house, I was trying to give my team the best angles possible to be able to cover me because, again, I can't see his hands. His hands are underneath his body like this. I can't see his hands. I don't know if there's still a threat.
So if he's face down, if I'm face down, okay?
Yes.
So you grabbed his right portion of his shoulder
Yes,
and turned him onto his back left.
onto his back, over to the
Where
left,
did you see the gun at that point?
immediately underneath his right arm.
This right area?
Yes,
Right arm or torso area?
yes.
And what type of gun was it?
It was the black pistol with the extended magazine that I saw him have earlier.
What did you do then, Jason?
To try to help clear room for guys to come in, I pulled the suspect into the kitchen and told the guys, watch out for the gun.
Okay, so you're alerting them that the gun's there?
Yes. Or one of them might have alerted me first. I don't remember.
Why do you have to pull the subject into the kitchen?
There was no room. There was no room to be able to get in.
What's the purpose of alerting them that the gun's there?
Because that's our threat. A firearm is our threat.
Did you touch the gun?
No, I never touched it.
Why would you never touch it?
I don't want to mess with anything that's on the scene. I've been on many scenes before in my life, and you try not to mess with anything.
Jason, why did you discharge your weapon on December 4th, 2020?
Because he pointed his gun at me. And I thought I was going to die.
You were in serious physical injury?
Yes.
Is there any doubt that he was going to cause you a serious physical injury or death?
No.
Is there any doubt that you saw the weapon?
No.
Subsequently, do you have to deal with people in the house?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you do there.
You still got to do your job. You got to keep going. And we're calling out. Myself and the other officers are trying to make contact with anybody else in the house. At one point, I saw one lady pop her head into the kitchen, and I was asking her, who is this coming in your house with a gun? She replied, nobody's coming in this house with a gun. And I'm telling her, just go to the front of the house. Everybody, if anybody's in the house, go to the front of the house. I heard a male voice from my left. I was facing into the kitchen. I heard a male's voice from the other side on the left where Rosser was covering. And I asked the same thing, who is this coming in your house with a gun? And the same reply, nobody's coming in this house with a gun. And then I heard Rosser say, telling, Yorkowitz telling different family members, go to the front of the house.
Did you try to call 911 or call the medics?
So at the time, I seen Yorkowitz was trying to air information on the radio, and I asked him, I said, did you give the address of the house that we're at? And he said, no. So I stepped back out front, I looked and I saw the numbers, and I confirmed it with, tried to confirm with the mailbox, and I don't remember exactly how I got it confirmed, but I gave the numbers on the radio, and I told them not only the address where we were, but get a medic started here for suspects with gunshot wounds.
Did you subsequently find out that this was someone's nephew that lived in the house?
That was after we got everybody out of the house.
How did that make you feel, Jason?
That's the way it'd make anybody feel. A family member just got killed.
By you?
Yes.
How did that make you feel, Jason?
Made me feel terrible.
Why?
Because no matter what physical training you do to respond to threats, you can't train for the emotional. You can't train for it. I don't know how else to say. They're out there crying, and it's a terrible, chaotic situation.
What did you think about at that point in time, Jason, about what you just did?
I remember thinking it was my boy's birthday. I just ruined his birthday. I thought,
You're a religious person, correct, Jason?
I am.
How do you deal with the sanctity of life in your occupation, Jason?
I love life. I love people. I love them. It's my honor to serve people, and I care for them deeply.
Was your response based on his actions that day?
Everything that I did was dictated by his actions. Yes, sir.
Would you have shot him if he dropped the gun?
Of course not.
Would you have shot your rifle if he complied?
No. No.
When you pull that trigger, do you know how many bullets are coming out?
I can only approximate.
Do you remember, Jason, when you made the U-turn and stuff and then went on, do you remember if you turned on your lights and siren?
I don't remember.
Do you know if you turned on your siren?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you know if you turned on your lights?
I'm not aware of if I did.
You got to watch that video, correct?
Yes, sir.
In that video, the car coming to the light to take left doesn't stop, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. You gave a written statement, correct?
I did.
And what did you say about the car in that written statement,
And
Jason?
Basis? One approach?
When you made the written statement, how long was that after December 4th, 2020?
I don't remember. It wasn't long after.
A month, a couple weeks?
Maybe a few weeks.
Okay. What did you base that statement on?
Off of memory, everything I could recall from that day.
Did you look at any videos, look at any evidence or anything like that when you made that statement?
No.
Did you try to do the best that you could with that statement?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what you put about that intersection, whether the car stopped for the light or went through continuously?
Yeah, in the statement, I had said that the car had stopped.
Okay. You realize you're wrong about that, correct?
I do now, yes.
Are you lying to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
No, I'm not lying. I based it off of what I could remember, which the emphasis of my focus would have been a man in a car pointing and waving a gun at me.
You belong to a church?
I do.
When you went up on December 4th, 2020 to Deputy Youngles, how did you feel, Jason?
I don't even remember the encounter with him.
You're not saying you made it up.
No, I believe it. I don't remember at the conclusion of what we were doing there. There was probably many people in, or I don't even know who drove me back to the SWAT building. I can't even remember.
What were you doing when you got the address so you're trying to clear the scene, correct?
Yes.
Make it safe.
Yes.
Why?
So I had already aired that we needed medics, and the only way that medics will arrive on scene and actually come in scene and to take over and work the gunshots would be if we give them a safe place. we have to be able to tell them that it's secure. It's our responsibility to make sure the scene is secure before we bring on medics. So at the time, I step out to make sure that everybody's coming to the correct address. I'm relying on others to air the information to the pertinent people. I'm not calling the medics myself. I'm airing it to my team. In the meantime, it's our responsibility to get the folks inside out so that we can clear and make sure that the place is safe. Again, we don't know who all's in here and we don't know what threats are still
You're
present.
doing all that at the same time that you realized you took somebody's life.
Yes, sir. I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know that I had taken his life. I just know that I had had an engagement with him. I knew that one of the SOFAS members had already showed up and started doing CPR on him. And in the meanwhile, we are trying to clear people out and to make sure the place is safe. I had stepped in with one officer to help clear a bedroom. I don't even remember which bedroom it was, but I immediately jumped right back out because I knew I wanted to get the medics in there as fast as possible. So I stepped back out on the porch.
You've seen, again, everything you're testifying to is what you remember from that day,
Yes.
not what you've seen in this courtroom.
No, not at all.
One thing you have seen was a conversation between you and Mr. Phillips, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What was the question that was asked of you, Jason?
In the midst of all the different, well, the question from Terry Phillips, you mean, he asked me, what was the call? I missed the call.
Okay. So what does that mean to you when someone says, what was the call? I missed the call.
It's police talk. Like a call means what was aired on the radio. Like what was radio traffic?
Did you tell him what you aired?
Yeah, that's what he asked me was, what did you air? So I told him what I aired. I aired that there was a man on the street coming out of a car with a gun, going to the house with a gun. I was airing that as I was trying to catch up to him.
Did he ask you why you shot your gun?
No,
Had he asked you why you shot your gun, what would you have told him?
I would have told him plainly. It's because he pointed his gun at me.
There's no de-escalation. Couldn't you have done some de-escalation at that point, Jason? Couldn't you have done other things rather than fire?
No.
Why?
Because you don't have an opportunity to de-escalate. Once he points the gun at me and my life's in danger, I have to act.
May I have a moment?
You may.
Jason, that's all the questions I have for you.
Thank you, sir.
Ten-4, negative 12,